This is the Ordinary Business Podcast for business owners who want honest conversations, a lean business, and an extraordinary life on their own terms. Kristin, what is your go-to caffeine to start your day?
So I am about as basic as it gets. I am Keurig coffee with vanilla creamer, like Coffee Mate vanilla creamer. Unless it is fall and winter season, then it is peppermint mocha creamer all the way.
Okay, so we are talking today about how you have very few hours a day in your business to work. I'm so interested to dive into this and see how you schedule things and manage things and just all of that. But before we dive in, can you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Kristin Wilson, and I am a flower preservation artist based down in the South in Pensacola, Florida. This is not my first business. So I've been in business for about 14 years, and this is what I've been doing for about the last 3 to 4. And it has been incredible, but also kind of like, what is happening in the best way? I specialize in bridal bouquet preservation and also grow my own flowers in the backyard that I press to sell at markets in an online shop. And then I teach workshops for how to press flowers in the first place for people.
Ooh,
So
very
yeah.
fun. I love it. Okay, can you walk us through like a typical work week and your time blocks, what that looks like, what kind of work you fit in throughout the day in different time blocks?
Sure. So my day starts typical week. I have on average approximately 20 hours a week where my kids are not home to do any sort of work. So my day starts at 5 a.m. My kids are 10 and 13, so 5th grade and 7th grade. My daughter is out the door for her school at 6:45, and then I wake up my son at 7:15 to go to his school, which I then get home from taking him in the mornings at 8:15. So essentially from 8:15 when I get home until 1:45 when my daughter gets home, that leaves about like 5.5 hours in a day. However, I also need to make sure that I have time for myself in there, time to eat lunch in there. And I try not to work up until like the minute that she gets home. Because I found if I am rushing from the minute my day starts, I am frazzled and frustrated versus working from a flow state. And so on that note, like I have found time blocks for me are finding the fluidity in my days versus like the set from this time to this time. So for example, each day has a different kind of a theme, for lack of a better word. Because I have found I have not necessarily, I try not to put it into a block, but it's like I have 3 hours in the mornings and then 1 hour in the afternoons. My husband also works from home 3 days a week. And one thing we found is that when he is home, I will take lunch and eat lunch when he eats lunch, just for us to have like midday hangout time for just 30 minutes. So essentially from like 8:15 when my son gets home until 9, I do basic house things. So that might be washing the dishes or taking out the trash or sweeping the floor, and that's it. And then in the afternoons, after my kids get home, is when we do other house stuff because I primarily work in the kitchen. And because of that, I can't handle seeing a sink full of dirty dishes. Like if I'm going to be working at the kitchen counter. And so I need a clean space to look at and to work from. But from 9 to 12, I have like my first block. And then from 12:30 to 1:30, I have my second block. Each day of the week has its own kind of theme, as I went over just like a little bit ago, but Mondays are for admin, planning, marketing, press checks, and they're also pickup days for any bouquets from the weekend prior. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are kind of my set, like, do not bother me, do not disturb kind of days. Those 2 days are also the days my husband's at the office. So like I can kind of, flex my days a little bit more that way. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are primarily for pressing, from either pressing from the garden or pressing from a bouquet. Designing days and also resin days. And then Thursdays I have items in a local shop. So I go and refresh that booth and like switch out the rug and make sure everything's set to go, finish up the resin projects, prep things for a market if I have it that weekend, and like take care of anything that would be for an online shop. And then Fridays are my flex days and delivery days. It makes it easy. So if my kids have a Friday off or a Monday off, it fits in where it's like if I have a doctor appointment or, something like that. Fridays are typically the days that I try and schedule those. And then Saturdays are days built in for reflection on how did I do this week? And then what do I need to change differently for the week moving forward to kind of like check in. But reflection days is literally like it's 30 minutes with me in my journal first thing in the morning before anybody else is awake. And then it's put away until Monday.
I want to point out, especially Monday being a flex day for like the kids and holidays. I also have my Mondays as kind of typically like no call days because Mondays are my husband's like meeting day. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
in meetings all day at work. And even though, if worst comes to worst, he can miss the meetings. But
Mm-hmm.
if our daughter is sick, then it's easier for me to just be like, okay, stay home. Like
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to rearrange all those calls.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a while before I blocked off Mondays, of course, it was always Mondays that she would be sick or whatever. And it was like, well, I have 3 calls. And he's like, well, I have 3 meetings. Eventually I was like, oh, I just need to block this off so that if she has
Mm-hmm.
to stay home, it's easier for me to just be like, okay, stay home. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to reschedule anything. So I think for business owners who have children or, if they're taking care of elderly parents, whatever it is, thinking about your partner's schedule also.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, that's their busy day or they're not at home that day. And like
Right.
really trying to look at your schedule also from that perspective. So there's less rescheduling and you can
Yes.
focus.
Yes, and it's funny too because for myself, when I have calls with potential couples that I need to chat with, I also do not take calls on Mondays because sometimes I won't hear from a bride until the Sunday after her wedding. So it's like Monday is a way that I can kind of hop into action last second kind of a thing and not have to
Mm,
reschedule. I have found I am a people pleaser and I want to take care of people like ASAP, but I also need to take care of myself.
yeah.
And from a previous business, I ran myself into the ground and then stomped on myself like 1,000 bazillion times. And so I've had to kind of find the rhythms and routines every day where which flows the best, where I'm taking care of people well, but also allowing myself and giving myself space for rest and time to take care of me so that I can take care of the other people in my family and my clients and like at markets and things like that so that I'm not showing up exhausted all the time.
Yeah.
And some people would say your daughter gets home from school at 1:45, there's still time in the afternoons. But for her, she's 13 and I have 30 minutes after she gets home from school before my son gets home.
Mhm.
And that's the one time a day where she and I have just us time. And I want her to know that when she comes home, it's not going to be, hey, mama's working, see you later kind of a thing. It's our time to chat over your day and like hear how things are going because I don't want her to feel like I'm a working mom that's not present. I want her to know like this is our time that I've carved out intentionally for us to hang out. And then I go and I pick up my son from the bus at 2:45 and then he gets that same like time in the afternoons. And then we all kind of like go our own ways. And then at 4:30, we all come back to the kitchen table to kind of do homework, chat about things and like anything that needs to be done. And then at 5:30, 4 nights a week, we leave for practice. For me, it was finding that flexibility between this is my time to work, this is my time to mom, this is my time to take care of myself, and then also getting sleep. Like I used to stay up late and get up early to work. And I didn't realize that I was completely making my body shut down in that meantime. And so I'm one of those people, like, I make myself go to bed, even if I have more work to do, because I don't want to be working at 11 or 12. Because if it's rushed or if I'm tired, it's not going to be my best work. It's going to be like, I just needed to get this done work.
Mhm.
And I can always tell it's evident when it's not been done the way it should be because it felt rushed rather than like rhythmic with getting my work done.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I get that. Okay, you touched on this a little bit, but with your few hours a day, how tightly are you planning? Like, how do you keep yourself from like, okay, I should do this and not do this and like, oh, I only have a short window
mhm.
and kind of keeping yourself on track?
So keeping myself on track is a daily conversation with myself. We talked about this briefly, but I have severe combined type ADHD, which means that I am all about the impulsivity and letting myself kind of take over. I have broken things down basically into 3 categories as far as time goes. So what will take 3 hours, what will take 1 hour, and then what will take less than 10 minutes to do.
Mm.
And my what will take less than 10 minutes, I call those my pockets. So like if I have a pocket of 10 minutes here, a pocket of 10 minutes there. For example, I go to pick up my son from the bus and I have a 10-minute pocket of time that I say, what can I do in this 10 minutes of time? And I use a few systems, but one of them is the notes app on my phone, but also I use a daily planner. I use sugar paper planners for everything. And so their daily one is broken down into like 30-minute increments. And so I will actually put in my non-negotiables for the day on the time pockets. And then I will see, okay, so for example, with us today doing this, I knew that this is an hour into that 3-hour chunk that I don't have to work. So what can I get done in 2 hours after a call before I force myself to take a lunch break? And then what can I do this 1 hour in the afternoons? And I have learned if I give in to my impulsivities, I will be mad at myself later. And so I have a constant running tab in my phone where it's like things that pop up into my head. And so now it's just every week I take those notes that were in my phone and I either delete them if they're no longer important, or I add them to my planner for the next week if they need to have priority. And so I actually plan things from an overall perspective 4 months at a time. So from January until April, May until August, and then September until December. And I look at, okay, so what are the goals that I have? What are the things I want to get done that matter in this season? And then what needs to get put off until later? And it's been a very big brain fight for me, for lack of a better word, because I constantly am like, ooh, shiny object syndrome. Let's try this or let's try that. But then I have to remember and say, for this season, this is what matters most right now. And then if that still matters in the upcoming season or something like that, then I will come back to it at a later time. And that has taken a lot of learning how to ebb and flow and listen to kind of, this is something that I want to do because it flew in my head 15 seconds ago, or this is something that I want to do because I need to take care of my business and keep things running and not just kind of let it fly by the seat of my pants as far as that goes.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, you mentioned like some other apps and tools. So I want to get into that.
Okay.
What do you use? What else do you use? You mentioned a few things to make this all possible.
Okay. So I am from the era of the hustle culture. And we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. Over the last 14 years, I've had to spend the time learning on what I do well and what is just noise. And for me, it's got to be simple. It's got to be simple. It's got to be consistent. And it has to be something I'm familiar with that is not changing a lot. So for all of the programs, I need to keep them simple. So I use HoneyBook for all client communication. Google Calendar, I use for recurring reminders that I have, plus all of my meetings. And Google Calendar is one that it's just, I didn't realize until I listened to one of your other previous episodes where I do this, but I have recurring reminders every Monday to check my mileage, every Saturday to reflect upon the week before. And then like every year to renew my business license. But that's the one place that I am consistently at all the time. I use Trello for all client notes to kind of keep in touch with, okay, so this bouquet I'm picking up this day. Now they're in the presses for these few weeks. But then I also have a Post-it, fancy Post-its on dry erase board with the exact same thing that Trello has, so that I have a visual of it, not on a computer. So I can literally move those Post-its from one side to the next. And then I break it all down into the paper planner, which I pull those Post-its from the dry erase board and then I have them on my planner so that I can be in focus, like see clearly what I have in front of me. And then for social media, I bought a lifetime membership to plan years and years and years ago. And it has been the best tool that I use in my business. It might sound like it's a lot, but for me, it's what I've found works the best, where I can break it down and see like the big picture overall, all the way down to daily what I need to work on.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to, it's one of my first episodes. It's
great.
Titled like Forget Notion and Asana. And I talked about how I have never really used those tools because Kristin and I are very similar in that I just have recurring tasks on my calendar for like every year. It's like renew LLC. Even though I get an email from them, I just like put it on there. And some people are like, well, why don't you just put that in Asana or Trello or like whatever? And I'm like, I don't know, because like those systems, I have tried them. I talk about this in the episode, but like they just don't work for my brain. I don't know. So, but I love like your system is even simpler than mine. Like,
well, it's for me though. Like I feel like it's important to find what works well for you. And I can put things in Asana all day long, but there's nothing that brings me joy to check something off. Like I don't like it, but I use all black pen for everything. This is a little fun little doodad, like little snippet. I have highlighters that once something is completed, I highlight it. If it
Oh.
no longer is needed, I cross it out with my pen. And then if it remains unhighlighted, then that's still something that I need to be done.
This episode is brought to you by the Bold Bots Club, created by Joyce Hamilton of Only Boldly. Joyce helps women in business do more by doing less using AI. Inside her membership, she teaches you how to build and monetize your own custom GPTs so you can save time and add new income streams. Learn more at boldbotsclub.com. Yeah, it's really, you have to find what works, and don't let the internet make you feel like you have to use something. Like, stick to Post-its, stick to Google Calendar, like whatever it is.
Post-its are my absolute best friend. I never thought I would be that, but it's like even my clients are labeled by color. But I've found like having Post-its, even though it's one of the most basic things, having Post-its and move it from one place to the next works so well for the way my brain works, and that I I have to listen to the way my brain works instead of trying to adapt by what I hear on social media works well for somebody else.
Yep. Okay, so with your limited hours per
Mhm.
week, what have you let go of in your business?
There is a combination of a lot of things that I have let go of. A long time ago from somewhere, I don't even remember where, somebody said something about spinning plates. And you have glass plates
Mm-hmm.
and you have plastic plates. So the glass plates are the most important things, like your family and taking care of yourself and all of those details. The plastic plates are anything else, anything that can drop that won't necessarily shatter and it's not absolutely devastating. And so I've had to kind of put things into what is a glass plate in this season? What is a plastic plate in this season? What do I need to keep spinning and what can I let drop or fall? And so for me, one of those things is I have had to let go of doing things fast.
Mm.
I have to do things slowly and intentionally. And I've learned to communicate that well with my clients also, that I am slow going in the work that I do because slow work is intentional and it's beautiful. So I have had to embrace doing things slowly, it is against everything that I like to do, which I also feel like is maybe God working on me to say, no, the slow things are the good things
Mm.
that you need to focus on the most. Also, I would love to be able to do more in my business, but I know right now in this season, I am not at a place where I can. I have been told I should be on TikTok and I should be on Threads and should do all this, but it's one more channel where my face is in my phone versus present with those around me. Also, it's one more thing I have to think about from a mental load perspective. And right now, it's not something else that I have the mental capacity to fill my brain with because I would rather fill it with life details more so than one more business channel. Also, being mindful is more important to me than adding more. I've experienced burnout more than I would like to admit over the last few years. And I've also learned to notice the signs of it reappearing, all the goals and all the things, but I also feel things on a deeply emotional level. I have to stay in tune and notice that, yes, I'm emotionally charged, but also on that note, like I don't want my emotions to lead my business. I have to take care of myself and notice, like, if I am having a season where I feel very frustrated or paralyzed or stuck, is it because I am doing too much and I'm starting to experience burnout? And if that's the case, what can I reevaluate with those spinning plates again? And maybe put one down so I can pick one up that matters more, as far as that goes. Because I feel like as business owners, we see so many other people where it's like they do more and they have more things happen. They're capable of more things, but also there's a phrase of like, we're all in the same boat. And I look at it that we're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same water and all of our boats are different
Mm.
because my schedule is not the same as your schedule.
Right.
And I cannot compare myself to another pressed flower artist when I don't know what her days are like. Or, for example, if you're married versus if you're single, if you have kids or if you don't, or even if you have kids that are teenagers versus newborns, like we might be the same kind of a business owner as far as a creative business owner or a service provider, but also our day to day is different. Yes, I have flexibility in my days, but do I want to fill it with more work or do I need to fill it with being more present at my kids' lives? Like, I don't want them to feel, oh, I'm at practice and mom is working. I want them to say, oh, I'm at practice and mom is watching and she's also taking care of herself.
It's very accurate to always remember, like, the boat analogy
Mm-hmm.
and how we're in the same water but different boats. Because, like, I work 30, 35 hours a week, but my
Mm-hmm.
daughter's in daycare from like 8 to 4:30 every day. And
Mm-hmm.
we all have different, either you don't have kids, you do have kids, they're home less, more,
Mhm.
partners who are gone more or like home. Like it's really hard when you're online and you're like, man, how is she doing that? Like
Yes. Oh
people
my
were
gosh,
like,
yes.
wait, you're doing client work and a summit and a podcast? And I'm like, well, yeah, I work hours a week. Like I have time.
I do wish that I had more time in my days to do things, but at the same time, it's funny. One of the things you asked me previously was like, if you suddenly got 2 extra hours a
Uh-huh.
day, would you want them? And I have that twice a year. So my daughter does sports at school. And so every like twice a year, she has an extra 2 hours that she's at school. And so I have 2 hours more like per week. And I found that I poured myself into what I was working on instead of adding something new. It's
Mm.
like, what can I do here to do better versus adding more? Because I would
Ooh.
rather do less and make it more impactful than add one more thing just because I have a little bit of time to dedicate to it.
Ooh. So
So,
like when you talk about doing something better, are you talking
mhm.
with the flowers specifically, or are you like, oh, I want to get better about
So I'm
social or
constantly wanting to get better at marketing.
Mhm.
Marketing is my one thing where it's like I do not post consistently on social media. And so if I could get better at the business side of things, that would be great. But it's what can I do well with what needs me now for this season to give it attention to versus like, oh, I have 2 extra hours for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Well, am I going to add something else? Because then when that 6 to 8 weeks is gone, then I'm like, oh my gosh, now I added this one more thing and now I no longer have that time. So now I feel like I've lost it.
I love that reframe. My friends would say, like, I'm always like, "Oh, how can I make this better?" I'm tweaking my, like, onboarding process 14
Mhm.
times a year. Like, "Let me add this and add that." But I love that reframe. Then, like you said, it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I lost it." Or then it's
Mhm.
like, "Okay, well, I was on TikTok for 8 weeks and then I completely dropped off." Like
Well, sometimes you can use that too and you can try something and say, maybe if I like this enough, then I'll figure out how to
Mm,
make it stick versus like I'm just going to try this for a few weeks and see how it goes. And if I find that it's something that I don't want to lose, then what can I kind of wiggle in my schedule or how can I adapt my schedule to make it something that it's important and it has value so I don't want to give it up kind of a
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Okay, this has been so, so good. I love the intentionality that you have in your life and in your business. I
Thank
almost
you.
got teary when you were talking about the 30 minutes you have with your kids when they come home.
It's like on Mondays, I have Mama Makes on Mondays. We have a different cookbook that they look at every week and they will pick out different cooking recipes. So every Monday morning they go off to school and I cook muffins while I am like doing stuff. And then in the afternoons, like at my lunch break, I will make cookies so that when my daughter gets home, they're like fresh out of the oven kind of a thing. It's one of those things where my mom, she worked, but she was also home. I don't want to be looking back, wishing I had worked more. My husband and I are very different as far as work. He starts at 8 and he's done at 5, and that's the way it is. Whereas me, it's like, hey, you want to come with me to pick up this bouquet? Or, I have a market that I'm doing on Saturday. Do you want to come with? And it's also just one of those where they see two different sides of how to create a life in a business that you love. My
Mm,
husband is 8 to 4 or 8 to 5. He's in and out and off like after 5 o'clock, off on the weekends. Whereas me, I'm like, hey, let's go and do this or let's go do that. Or yes, I can come and pick you up at school. Or yes, I can come and have lunch with you. But that also means if I'm saying yes to having lunch with you, then that means I'm going to have to do something this afternoon. Are you okay with that? Or do you want to help me with that? And so sometimes they go shopping with me at places that they don't want to go, like the nursery. But sometimes they do it because they know I have to have flexibility in my days, but I also need to have the structure with them that I'm mom when I'm mom, but I also am a mom running a business. And
mhm.
so they get to see, like, yes, you can chase your dreams, but you need to chase the ones you want, kind of
Yep.
a thing, and figure out what you're passionate about and go all in with it. I want my kids to experience life in a way that works for them. And hopefully, from seeing the two different sides, like with my husband and I, they both get to experience what life could be like, however they picture it,
Yes, yes,
kind of a
yes.
thing.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. Where can we connect with you online and see your work?
So everything is Grace and Serendipity. So it's Grace and A-N-D, serendipity.com. Instagram is the one place where you can find me consistently. Maybe in the future, Threads and TikTok and other places, but for now, that's where it is. So,
Awesome. Well, I will link that in
yeah.
the show notes, but thank you so much for being here.